Hello and welcome to Be Empowered, a podcast series that is brought to you by BioLabs. We are recording live here from Bio 2024 in San Diego. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming Beth Hoffman, founder and CEO of Origami. Hi, Beth. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Maybe we can start by an introduction of yourself, your background, and what does origami do?
Sure, I'd love to. One of my favorite topics. So I'm Beth Hoffman, and I'm founder and CEO of Origami Therapeutics. So I'm a scientist by training, molecular and cell biology, and after working at National Institute of Mental Health, I was recruited to Eli Lilly. And so I've been working, I consider myself a drug hunter. I've been working in pharma and industry for over 25 years, put more than 30 compounds into the clinic, a few of which have actually have become launched drugs, and I'll tell you a little bit about that when I tell you the origin of Origami Therapeutics. And so, which I'll do right now. So origami originated basically from I had the huge privilege of working on the cystic fibrosis drugs that Vertex has launched. And these have really completely changed the way cystic fibrosis is treated. And so I thought, well, that's fantastic. And it was, just really spine tingling to see all of that evolve and what a big impact it's had on patients and their families. It's really just changed what they could hope for in their lives, right? And so much of my background is in neuroscience. And so I thought, the kind of approach that was used to find the cystic fibrosis drugs could be applied to neurodegeneration. And so I decided that given my unique background, I really owed it to start this company and try to find functionally curative medicines for neurodegeneration. And so that's exactly what we do at Origami Therapeutics. So we use an innovative small molecule approach to try to find drugs that will, in essence, halt the progression of neurodegenerative diseases. And we do that by focusing on monogenic diseases where we know what the cause of the disease is, and we also know who to recruit in clinical trials. So much of the failures have been when it's not easy, but it's doable to make drug candidates and put them in the clinic. But if you're not able to test them, you don't know who to test them on, and you don't know what to measure, all is a waste, basically, right? And so what we do is we start with a disease. We know what's wrong. We know what we need to fix, and we know who to recruit and what to measure. And so that gives us a much higher probability of technical success in the clinic. And so that's basically what we're up to.
And this approach, I guess, you got from your industry background, right?
Yes.
And your experience.
Yes.
So maybe can you elaborate a little bit more on what do you think it gave you, like extra as an entrepreneur coming from the industry compared to we see more of entrepreneurs coming from an academic background, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I think just from the conceptualizing the company, the focus on the end in mind, what you need to, what you need for a successful drug that's going to get to the market, and therefore what you need to be able to show in the clinic. And I think that's the key driver that keeps our focus. So as I tell my people, the patients and their families are waiting. So we act with quite a bit of urgency, which, and I'm not saying people don't work hard, and in academia this is not about hard. It's about picking the right experiments to do so that you can advance as quickly as you can to the clinic. The advantage of that is that you also advance how quickly you might be able to get funding from other sources.
Right. And what kind of advice could you give to industry professionals, maybe to start such an adventure like you did?
Yeah, well, I think along the way, anybody who's done this can say, yeah, I can outline all the mistakes. There are
Okay.
plenty of them. Let me tell you. Um, but in some cases, you might not have done anything differently. I'm a sole founder,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it would have been great to have had a co-founder. So it's really, really important to have somebody that doesn't always agree with you to bounce ideas off of. So I have a CFO. She's a fractional CFO because a startup really doesn't need a full-time CFO. But she has a CPA by training, but she's done a lot in terms of, you know, human resources and operations and things of that nature. And so we make a really good team in that regard. And we don't always agree. And in fact, what's really hilarious is when we interview people, when we come back together and we go, so what did you think? And, she likes this person, I like that person, and we go, oh, that's interesting. Why do you think that? So, so it's actually fun, and
Mm-hmm.
I would highly recommend that. I guess I had the luxury, maybe, of having done so many drug discovery programs that I knew what needed to get done, and I didn't sort of wait around to get a
Mm-hmm.
lot of buy-in because what I was doing and what we are still doing is fairly novel and not the way people are going after neurodegeneration, and for the most part. And so it's you have to find the other piece of recommendation is a co-founder and somebody associated with your enterprise should be a professor from a great university. And, you know, uh, I think that really gives you a leg up in terms of getting an audience with investors and others. So I think that's why I think there's a lot of advantage to spinning something out of academia. I think that's part of what you see, and so I really think that's keenly important. I think the challenge in our case was we entered. I started origami when pharma was really getting out of neuroscience. The approaches were really pretty stagnant. So, in other words, it was mostly A beta antibodies,
Mm-hmm.
and so people were not looking for something really novel. But I really felt strongly that based on my background, basically bringing in a lot of knowledge from a completely different field, um, it really gave us a leg up in terms of the science, and I think that has been borne out. But I also think it's been a harder for us to raise money.
Okay. Okay. Um, and so when you founded your company, you've decided to locate at BioLabs in San Diego.
So this is
Why
an
is that?
interesting story. So, and I hope nobody gets too offended. So I interviewed at BioLabs and I interviewed at JLabs,
Okay.
and I was accepted in both. And I liked the kind of setup that they had at JLabs. And so we were there for a couple of years. But then I looked around again because the space at BioLabs, and remember I came in at the beginning when in San Diego when they were at their original location.
Yes.
But even then, I think the driving issue to be in an incubator for us, because we do a lot of biology, we use a lot of different equipment. And so I think that was a huge advantage at BioLabs, and I think that was borne out. Basically, we have equipment, that some of which we share with others, that really we couldn't get
Mm-hmm.
at, really modern equipment. There have been a number of pieces of equipment that, we were asked what would we want, the residents. And I have to say, BioLabs, found a way to order a couple of those pieces of equipment. Things like automation, things like, it seems like not very interesting, but, high throughput tissue homogenizer.
Mm-hmm.
So you go, well, who really wants that? Well, if you do a lot of animal studies and you have to analyze a lot of tissues,
Yep.
we want that.
Yes. Yes.
And that's a new piece of equipment,
Mm-hmm.
and of course we're the first ones to use it and had to figure out how all that went, and there were a few hiccups with the vendor, but these things happen anyway. But I have to say, this is huge because I priced out what it would be to go independent, rent space, and have to lease all of this equipment, and actually it's a bargain. So I have to say, I mean, I've heard a lot of people say to me, oh, but it's really expensive. I said, you know, when you add it all up and you think about everything that you as an independent lab have to do, environmental health, a lot of other things that you think, oh, that's nothing, but we had to do that when we were elsewhere, and it was a quarter of my technician's time. So, I mean, when you think about it, it really it looks like a lot initially, but when you really add it all up and look at it, it's a bargain. So,
And it's I would say a community effort, right?
yes.
So it's all about for entrepreneurs to share their needs, share knowledge, share their network, for
Yes.
the BioLabs partners to be there to provide the best kind of equipment
Yep.
and to support you in its usage. And so it's great to see that this community is has really helped you in
Yeah.
your growth here.
And I have to say, so I didn't mention this, but this is really is true. There are a lot of really great people and great companies. You know, I can speak specifically for San Diego, but I've met companies from some of the other sites as well, and I think that's that's really, you can't replace that, right? So if you have a little set up all by yourself, you will have to work harder to really get, there's the camaraderie of, the pain and angst
Yeah.
of being an entrepreneur, but also just, science wise. I mean, my folks spend a lot of time talking to other people. So what worked for you, what didn't work. Sometimes we borrow things amongst each other, and so I think all in all, we're really very happy. I feel very fortunate that we moved over to BioLabs. So
Well, it's great to hear. Thank you so much, Beth, for joining us today. We look forward to hear more about the further development and advancement of your company.
thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.